Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
Hello again.
Today we're digging into sponsorship, but maybe from an angle that's not always the first thing people think of. It's definitely more than just, having a mentor figure.
Oh, absolutely. Much more. Our sources today, they really push us to reframe it. Think about the sequence of development, those big steps, 4 through 12.
The core action steps.
Right. And how they all build towards service, specifically sponsorship. And the really key idea here is that carrying the message, sponsoring someone, it's not just an obligation.
Not just doing your duty for the program.
Exactly. It's presented as something much deeper, a living amend.
A living amend. I really like that phrase. It feels active, like something you do constantly.
It is. It suggests this ongoing act of, restorative justice, almost.
Yeah.
And the fascinating part is how much it heals the sponsor, maybe even more than the sponsee sometimes. It's about giving back what you were given.
So the 12th step, in this view, becomes the ultimate way to make things right for the past. The ultimate restitution.
That's the heart of it. That's the journey we want to trace today. How you move from that deep, often painful internal work.
The inventories, the admissions.
Yeah, all of that. How you move from that to this external act of giving back, and how that whole process creates this cycle of reciprocal healing. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Sounds like it. Okay, so where does this transformation actually begin? It feels like it has to start inside first.
It absolutely does. You can't give away what you don't have.
Right.
The first real shift has to be internal. It's about perspective.
So when someone really commits to this path, the change isn't initially about, say, just stopping the old behaviors. It's more fundamental.
That's right. The sources talk about putting on a new pair of glasses. Chuck C. really emphasized this analogy.
A new pair of glasses. What does that mean, practically speaking? How does your view change?
Well, think about how life might look in active addiction or deep suffering. Often feels dark, right? Meaningless, overwhelming maybe.
Yeah, hopeless even.
Exactly. So these new glasses, they allow you to see differently, to see that same life. But now it seems full of hope, maybe some serenity, even purpose. It's a huge shift.
And it involves moving away from, what, being self-centered?
Fundamentally, that's the core of it.
Yeah.
Moving away from that suffocating, self-centric viewpoint, which, isn't just about being selfish in the obvious ways.
Right, it's deeper than that. It's like operating as if you're the absolute center of the universe and everything revolves around you.
Precisely. Or sometimes the flip side, feeling responsible for everything, carrying the weight of the world. Both are distortions rooted in self-centeredness.
Yeah.
Everything gets filtered through, how does this affect me?
Okay.
So these new glasses, they force you, gently maybe, to look outward, to recognize that you're part of something bigger, interconnected. And that leads to understanding the spiritual awakening they talk about in Step 12.
The spiritual awakening, which isn't like a lightning bolt. Right. Not usually.
Not usually, no. It's not some sudden zap and you're fixed. It's described more as an ongoing journey, something you cultivate day by day.
How? How do you cultivate it?
Through the practical, conscious application of spiritual principles. Things like honesty, humility, compassion, gratitude.
And these aren't like abstract religious ideas, they're tools.
Exactly. Practical tools. For dealing with traffic jams without losing it. For handling a tough day at work. For navigating tricky family stuff. They become the nuts and bolts of building a stable, sober, and, dare I say, happier life.
Makes sense. But you mentioned earlier you can't really apply these outward until you've done some work inward.
Correct. You have to use those principles on yourself first, which brings us right to the bedrock, steps 4 and 5. The honest self-examination. You can't make meaningful amends out there until you've achieved a certain radical honesty in here.
Step 4, the searching and fearless moral inventory. I know the Little Red Book Study Guide calls it an action step that really grates on the alcoholic nature. Why does it grate so much? It sounds simple, just write stuff down.
But it's what you're writing down and the honesty required. It grates because it's a direct assault on the ego, on the defenses we build up.
Defenses like denial, minimizing, blaming others.
All of those. That alcoholic nature, or really just human nature under stress, wants to protect itself. The inventory demands you really look at your destructive patterns, your repeated harmful behaviors, how you've treated yourself, how you've treated others, specifically.
Oof.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It forces you to confront, I did these things, I caused this harm. That's tough for anyone to face.
And the sources, particularly Stephanie Covington, stress this really fine balance. You have to take responsibility but not take blame. That sounds difficult. How do you even separate those?
It is difficult, because our culture often mashes them together.
Mm.
But the distinction is crucial for healing. Taking responsibility is about the facts. I did this action, and this was the harmful result. It's objective, almost.
Okay.
Taking blame, though, that usually comes loaded with judgment. Feelings of worthlessness, deep shame, the kind of shame that can actually fuel the addictive cycle.
Right, the I'm a bad person spiral.
Exactly. So the inventory aims to be more like forensic accounting than a moral trial. You name the actions, describe the harms, but you try to do it without the crushing self-judgment. You're naming it to heal it, not to punish yourself endlessly.
So instead of writing, I'm a worthless loser who ruined my marriage, you'd write something like, my drinking contributed to conflicts and dishonesty, which damaged the trust in my marriage.
Precisely. It shifts from who you are to what you did.
Mhm.
And behaviors can be changed. But, and this is a huge but, this whole process hinges on actually doing step 5.
Admitting the exact nature of your wrongs, to God, to yourself, and to another human being.
Yes. If you try to skip that or skimp on it, the sources are really clear. You just end up carrying all those defects, all that shame, completely alone. The inventory work doesn't take if you don't share it.
And there are real consequences to holding back, aren't there? The 12 and 12 book is pretty blunt about it.
Very blunt. It
Sure.
talks about irritability, anxiety, remorse, deep depression setting in if you try to keep it all locked inside. And here's the kicker.
Yeah.
Often, when you're trying so hard to hide your own flaws, you start seeing them everywhere else. You start projecting them onto other people.
Oh, wow. So you end up accusing your partner or your friends of being controlling or dishonest or selfish.
Exactly. The very things you can't face in yourself. Because the internal pressure is too much, the ego looks for an outlet. It's classic self-sabotage, really. Trying to protect yourself by attacking others when the real issue is inside.
That sounds exhausting and lonely.
It is. Terribly lonely. That's why step 5 is described in Daily Reflections as offering a resting place. Finally putting the burden down.
By sharing it. In that specific way, God, self, another person.
That specific sequence seems key. It provides this profound release. You admit it to the universe, you admit it fully to yourself, and then you break the isolation by sharing it with another trusted human. It lets go of that ego that keeps insisting, I'm fine, I can handle this alone. It's absolutely necessary before you can move toward making things right externally.
That letting go of the ego. That surrender. It seems like that flows naturally into this idea of humility, doesn't it? Which is another cornerstone of the program, but often gets misconstrued.
Definitely. People hear humility and think weakness or being walked all over, but that's not the program's definition at all.
So what is it then? Covington defines it. How?
As simply seeing things as they are. Radical realism.
Yeah.
It's about knowing your strengths, yes, but also honestly acknowledging your limitations, what you can do and what you absolutely cannot do, like controlling everything or everyone.
But hang on, how does admitting you're not all powerful make you stronger? Seems counterintuitive. Isn't that just admitting defeat?
It feels like it at first, maybe. But think about the energy it takes to constantly pretend you're in control, to keep up the facade. It's immense.
Yeah, the managing the universe job.
Right. Accepting imperfection, accepting limitation. It brings this incredible relief. You can stop fighting reality. You can stop trying to manage the unmanageable. And, crucially, it gives you permission to do something radical.
Which is?
Ask for help. Truly ask for help, knowing you actually need it. That's real strength.
The Daily Reflections piece on step 2 connects this to sanity, right? It links insanity and ego.
It does. Insanity being, repeating the same mistakes, expecting different outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
which is driven by the ego refusing to accept reality or limitations. So to get sane, you have to kind of step aside, let go of the ego's grip, and accept dependence on a power greater than yourself. Whatever that looks like for you
It's stopping the fight.
is stopping the
Yeah,
fight.
yeah.
And the sources suggest that your attitude towards humility changes over time. At first, maybe you accept it because you have to, because the program says so.
You're beaten into it, basically.
Kind of, yeah. But then there's this turning point where you start seeking humility because you want it. You genuinely want the peace that comes from not having to pretend anymore.
You're tired of the act.
Exactly. Tired of the sheer exhaustion of maintaining the ego. And that desire for humility, for truthfulness, that's what allows for the deep honesty needed in step 4. And it opens the door to real serenity and freedom. Humility isn't passive, it's active truthfulness.
Okay. So the internal landscape is shifting. You've done the inventory, you've shared it, you're starting to cultivate humility, heal the shame. Now you can finally turn outward, right, to address the actual harm done.
Now you're ready. Now we move into the amends process. Steps 8 and 9.
So the outward action really kicks off with step 8. Make a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. First hurdle, defining harm. It's not always obvious, is it?
No, it's often much broader than just, say, financial damage or physical injury. The program literature offers a really useful frame for this. It talks about harm being the result of instincts in collision.
Instincts in collision. What does that mean?
Well, the program identifies some core human instincts: the drive for security, financial, emotional, the sex drive, the drive for social standing, ambition. You know, these are natural
Right.
drives.
Normal human stuff.
Right. But in active addiction, or even just driven by fear and ego, these instincts get twisted. They become excessive or focused entirely on the self, ignoring spiritual principles like honesty or consideration. And when my distorted instincts slam into your legitimate needs and instincts, that's the collision. That's where harm occurs.
Can you give an example? How does that play out?
Sure. Take the security instinct. If I lied repeatedly to my employer to cover up mistakes, I wasn't just being dishonest. I was colliding with their need for a secure, trustworthy workforce, maybe jeopardizing their business. That causes real mental and emotional harm, stress, mistrust.
For betraying a partner.
Classic example. That collides directly with their instinct for emotional security, for social standing within the relationship, maybe even their spiritual sense of commitment. The damage goes way beyond the specific act. It shakes their foundation. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual harm. It can be any or all of those.
That framing makes the impact feel much bigger than just, I messed up. It's about disrupting someone's fundamental sense of safety or well-being.
It really does. And another critical piece here, something people often overlook initially, is recognizing the sins of omission.
Sins of omission, meaning
Meaning the harm caused not by what you did, but by what you failed to do. The Daily Reflections mentions dropping out, not sending the card, not returning the call, not showing up when someone needed you.
the emotional neglect, being absent.
Exactly. Addiction is incredibly self-absorbed. It makes
Yeah.
you withdraw, you become unreliable, you let people down. That absence, that failure to be present and supportive, that's a real harm. It can feel like abandonment to the other person. It adds a whole other layer to the step 8 list.
So you compile this list, acknowledging all these different kinds of harm, direct and indirect. Then comes step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. This sounds like where things get really complicated.
This is definitely where wisdom, judgment, and guidance become absolutely crucial. It's not just about raw honesty anymore. It's about discernment. The sources use the word prudence.
Prudence. Okay. As Bill sees, it talks about this as a workable middle ground, right, between two dangers.
Yes, exactly. A narrow channel you have to navigate. On one side, you have the obstacle of fear. Fear stops you from making amends you should make. You tell yourself, oh, it would hurt them too much, or it was so long ago, but really?
Really, you're just scared of their reaction or the consequences?
Often, yes. Scared of rejection, anger, legal trouble, whatever. That's one danger, letting fear paralyze you. But the other danger is recklessness.
Recklessness. How so?
That's where you're so focused on your need to get this off your chest, to get your clean slate, that you charge ahead and confess everything, regardless of the impact on the other person.
Oh. Dumping your guilt onto them, potentially causing fresh harm, just so you can feel better?
Precisely. And step 9 explicitly forbids that. You cannot buy your own peace of mind at the expense of injuring someone else. That's a hard line.
That tension must be incredibly difficult to navigate, especially when you're feeling desperate to make things right.
It is. It's considered the acid test of this step. Stephanie Covington gives some really powerful examples of this dilemma.
Like what?
Well, the classic one is the affair. Disclosing a long-past, unknown affair to a spouse. Yes, it might clear your conscience in that moment, but think about the potential devastation. It could destroy the spouse's reality, harm children, shatter a family that might have otherwise healed or stabilized. Is that confession truly restorative or just destructive?
So, in a case like that, the amend isn't the confession itself.
Maybe not directly, no. The true amend might lie in living differently from that point forward, being the completely faithful, honest, present, trustworthy partner you failed to be before. The amend becomes your changed behavior, your demonstrated commitment over time. The goal is restoration, remember, not just confession for confession's sake.
What about other situations? Like at work?
Covington gives another example. Maybe you said some really cruel, undermining things about a colleague to your boss years ago. Now, going to that colleague and saying, hey, I told the boss you were incompetent back then. How does that help them? It just makes them feel unsafe and maybe damages their current standing if the boss is still around.
Right. It could just stir up trouble unnecessarily.
Exactly. In that case, maybe the direct amend is actually to the boss admitting your past gossip or negativity, if appropriate. Or maybe the best amend is simply treating that colleague with consistent respect, support, and integrity from now on, demonstrating through action that you're not that person anymore.
So it requires real thought about who was harmed, how they were harmed, and what action would actually repair things rather than just expose things.
That's the essence of it. The spirit of step 9, as the 12 and 12 puts it, is this readiness to take the consequences yourself and to prioritize the well-being of others. Accepting that sometimes the most profound amend isn't a conversation at all.
It's a changed life.
It's a changed life. And that focus on the spirit of the amend, on the ongoing change, leads us directly to this concept of the living amend. When a direct apology isn't possible or would cause more harm, your recovery itself, your transformed behavior, becomes the amend.
This connects to something Russell Brand talks about regarding apologies. He says the program basically formalizes what we kind of intuitively know there's a right way and a wrong way to say sorry. He calls out the non-amend.
Ah, yes, the eua culpa. I love that term.
What is the eua culpa?
It's when you apologize for how the other person feels, instead of for what you did. Like saying, I'm sorry if my words hurt your feelings. See the shift?
Yeah, it puts the focus on their feelings, making it seem like maybe they're just too sensitive. It dodges responsibility for the words themselves.
Exactly. It subtly blames the victim. A real amend, a mea culpa, my fault, sounds like. I'm sorry for what I said. It was critical and unkind. I take responsibility for saying it. It owns the action.
That distinction is huge. One tries to wriggle out, the other steps up.
It is huge. And Brand makes another great point. When you're making amends, especially to people from your past, like ex-partners or former colleagues, you're also, in a way, making a promise to yourself.
Half so.
You're communing with your past self and committing internally to being a different person now. You're saying, that was then. This is who I am committed to being today. That internal transformation, that commitment lived out. That is the living amend. That's the permanent restitution.
So it's the ongoing demonstration of change, day in and day out, which perfectly sets the stage for the final step we're discussing, the action step of service. Okay, so we've navigated the internal shifts, the difficult work of amends, and now we arrive at step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Big step.
It's huge. And notice the emphasis shifts outward now. The 12 and 12 highlights the joy of living as a theme here and says the key word is action. It's about giving away what you've found.
Giving away the message. How does that work in practice? Is it about lecturing people?
Not at all. Quite the opposite, usually. Covington points out the simplest way to 12-step someone to carry the message is just to share your story, honestly.
Your own experience.
Yeah. What it was like, the drinking or using, what happened, how you found recovery, and what it's like now your experience with these steps. It's demonstration, not proclamation.
Because the program is about attraction rather than promotion, right?
Yeah. Exactly. You're not selling anything. You're offering your experience, your vulnerability, as evidence that change is possible. The focus is on being able to truly listen, to empathize with someone who's still struggling because you've been there.
And that helping hand, that listening ear, it's not just for brand new people, is it?
Oh, definitely not. The principle applies much more broadly. It's about carrying that message of hope and the usefulness of these principles to anyone who might be hurting or struggling. Could be a long-timer in the program facing a new challenge. Could be a family member, a colleague going through a tough time. The core message, shared vulnerability, practical spiritual tools, is universal.
That act of carrying the message eventually got formalized into sponsorship. And the origin of that word sponsor is pretty interesting, isn't it? Quite practical.
Very practical, almost logistical. It came out of necessity in the early days, the late 1930s. Some hospitals back then, like St. Thomas in Akron, were hesitant to take in alcoholics. They'd only admit someone if a sober AA member personally agreed to sponsor them.
Wow. So what did that involve?
It was intense, according to Living Sober. The sponsor was basically responsible for that person. They had to visit them regularly in the hospital, make sure they were okay, guarantee their discharge, and then physically take them to meetings. It was a serious commitment.
Sounds like a lot more than just offering advice over coffee, almost like a form of temporary guardianship.
It really was. It embedded this idea of shared responsibility deep in the program's DNA. But it's also important to remember what sponsorship isn't.
Meaning,
Meaning the sponsor isn't supposed to be put on some pedestal. They're not perfect, they don't have all the answers. Courage to change reminds us that the sponsor has the map, maybe, but the journey is the sponsee's.
hmm,
The answers ultimately have to come from within the sponsee, maybe guided by a higher power. It's a partnership in searching, not a guru relationship.
that makes sense. And this leads us right into that central paradox of the program, the one that really defines service as this living amend. You have to give it away to keep it.
That's the core principle, isn't it? The priceless gift of sobriety, of this new way of life. You can't hoard it. The only way to maintain it, to deepen it, is by freely giving it to others who need it.
Why? What's the mechanism there? Is it just a nice saying, or is there something deeper happening?
Oh, it's much deeper than just a saying. Think about it
Yeah.
psychologically. To get the full benefit, the deep spiritual transformation, you have to actively try to help someone else. Why? Because every time you share your experience, strength, and hope,
You're reinforcing it for yourself.
exactly, you're stepping into the identity of a helpful, sober, recovering person. You're actively counteracting that old self-image of being someone who takes, damages, isolates. Each act of service affirms the new self, the recovered self.
So helping the sponsee isn't just a kindness to them, it's actually essential spiritual maintenance for the sponsor.
Absolutely essential. The sources are explicit. Service is fundamental to maintaining your own spiritual condition. It's what provides the daily reprieve from the obsession or the old ways of thinking. If you stop giving it away, you risk slipping back into that self-centered thinking and potentially losing the very thing you value most. Giving becomes self-preservation.
That really flips the script on service. It's not purely altruistic, it's also fundamentally self-caring.
It's beautifully reciprocal.
Mm.
Which brings us back to Ernest Kurtz's work on AA history and spirituality. He talks about this idea of restorative justice happening through vulnerability.
Restorative justice through vulnerability. How does that work?
He describes this profound sense that comes from sharing, honestly, the realization that all need each other both to receive from and to give to. It's in that mutual vulnerability, that shared humanity, that the real healing happens for both people.
So when a sponsor shares their own past struggles, their flaws, the times they stumbled, they're not just helping the sponsee feel less alone.
No, they're also healing themselves. Kurtz suggests that as honesty and vulnerability increase, so does the sponsor's own sense of being healed, of being made whole as human. The very act of sharing transforms the shame of the past into a source of connection and healing in the present.
So your greatest liabilities, the things you are most ashamed of, they actually become your greatest assets in helping someone else.
That's the incredible alchemy of it. You're making restitution for past harms by using the wisdom gained from those harms to offer hope and a solution to someone else. And that dynamic, that mutual sharing of experience, strength, and hope. Kurtz argues that's the very essence, the definition of the fellowship itself.
Wow. Okay, so that's the carry the message part. But step 12 has another crucial part. Practice these principles in all our affairs.
Yes, this is where the rubber really meets the road. It means taking everything you've learned, the honesty, humility, tolerance, patience, forgiveness, and applying it outside the context of recovery meetings or sponsorship calls.
In everyday life. At work, at home, in traffic.
Everywhere. The 12 and 12 calls this the acid test. Can you maintain sobriety, emotional balance, and live purposefully under all conditions? Not just when things are easy, but when you're stressed, frustrated, bored, or facing real adversity.
That sounds like, well, lifelong work.
It is. It requires constant vigilance, a conscious effort to apply, say, patience when the kids are screaming, or integrity when no one's looking, or tolerance towards that annoying neighbor. It's practicing spirituality in the mundane, because if the principles don't work there,
They won't hold up in a real crisis.
exactly. The small stuff builds the foundation for the big stuff.
But the promise here is pretty amazing, isn't it? The literature suggests that by consistently practicing these principles, even the tough stuff, the monotony, pain, and calamity, can be turned to good use.
That's the ultimate transformation, the ultimate living amend. It means that suffering doesn't have to be meaningless. It can become fuel for growth, a source of empathy, a way to connect with and help others. You're not just making amends to specific people anymore. You're making amends to life itself by finding meaning and usefulness even in hardship. Hashtag outro.
So what we've really explored today is this incredible arc, starting with that deep, sometimes painful look inside.
The inventory, the letting go of ego.
Right. moving through the careful, responsible work of making amends, both direct apologies and the living amend of changed behavior.
That commitment to being different.
And culminating in this ongoing action of carrying the message through service, especially sponsorship. It creates this continuous loop, doesn't it? Giving and receiving, healing and being healed.
Absolutely. The act of sponsoring, seen this way, isn't a final step you arrive at, but part of the ongoing restitution. You offer your changed self, your story, your vulnerability back to the world. And in doing so, you maintain your own recovery. It's profound.
It really reframes service as essential, not optional.
It's essential for a life of, as the step says, joy and usefulness.
Hmm.
And that promise that practicing these principles can transform even the worst experiences into something useful
Yeah.
leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Think about one area in your life right now that feels difficult. Doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it's a nagging financial worry or frustrating dynamic with someone at work, or just the daily grind feeling monotonous.
Okay. Got it down.
Now ask yourself, what spiritual principle, maybe honesty with yourself about it, maybe finding some humility in it, maybe seeing how you could offer some small service related to it, could you consciously try to apply to that specific situation today? Just as an experiment. See if applying that principle, even imperfectly, changes the experience from just suffering into,
Sure.
well, into an opportunity for growth, for good use. Where could you start?